Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Broken Glass. August Wilson never considered himself lucky until he met Vanessa. The successful architectural firm he built from scratch had consumed his 20s, leaving little room for personal relationships. Then Vanessa Hayes walked into his office, a potential client seeking designs for her new art gallery, and everything changed. Her amber eyes, framed by chestnut hair, captivated him. Her wit and intelligence sealed his fate. Their courtship was swift, passionate. Within a year, they were married, and 9 months later welcomed their daughter, Lily. For 12 years, August believed he had everything: a thriving business, a beautiful wife who had given up her gallery aspirations to raise their family, and Lily, now a perceptive 12-year-old who shared his analytical mind. Then came the crash. August was returning from a business trip when his phone rang. The hospital. Vanessa had been in a serious car accident on the mountain pass outside their lakeside home in Maryland. Her Audi had careened off the road, rolling down an embankment. She'd been found unconscious, barely breathing. For 3 weeks, August barely left her hospital room, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside her bed, holding her limp hand. Lily would visit after school, sitting quietly, doing homework, watching her mother's still form. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. Brain activity was present, vital signs stable. But Vanessa remained unresponsive, locked in what they called a persistent vegetative state. Dr. Bennett, the neurologist, had been honest with August. Some patients wake up after days, others after years. Some never do. All we can do is wait. So August waited, running his business remotely, caring for Lily, and visiting Vanessa religiously. Their spacious lake house, once filled with laughter and dinner parties, fell silent. August moved mechanically through his days, a man sleepwalking through his own life. It was during this time that he noticed subtle changes in Lily. His once vibrant daughter grew withdrawn, constantly checking her phone. When questioned, she'd claim it was just a friend from school, but August sensed something more. Then came a phone call from Principal Harlow. Lily had been skipping classes. When confronted, she burst into tears but wouldn't explain. August chalked it up to trauma, her way of processing her mother's condition. He arranged for therapy and tried to be more present despite his own grief. One morning, August was reviewing designs in Vanessa's hospital room when Nurse Dominic entered. "There's been some unusual brain activity overnight," he said, studying the monitors. "It could be nothing, but it might indicate increasing awareness." Hope bloomed in August's chest. That evening, he brought Lily to visit. As August stepped out briefly to speak with Dr. Bennett, something happened in the room he would later replay in his mind countless times. When he returned, Lily's face had drained of color. She clutched her phone with white knuckles, staring at her mother with undisguised fear. "Dad," she whispered, grabbing his arm. "Mom is awake. She's faking it." August frowned. "That's impossible." Wordlessly, Lily handed him her phone. On the screen was a text message conversation with an unknown number. "He still doesn't suspect anything. 3 more weeks, then we're free. The insurance payout will be enough to disappear forever." "What about your daughter?" "Collateral damage. August can have her." August felt his world tilt. He looked at the unconscious form of his wife, then back at the messages. "The timestamp, sent yesterday." "She doesn't know. I have her old phone," Lily whispered. "I found it in her studio when I was looking for her insurance card. The passcode was my birthday." August's mind raced. He looked at Vanessa's heart monitor, the steady rhythm suddenly sinister rather than reassuring. He took Lily's hand and left the hospital immediately. Chapter 2, The Spider's Web. The drive home passed in a blur, Lily's revelation echoing in August's mind. He gripped the steering wheel of his Range Rover until his knuckles turned white, fighting to maintain composure for his daughter's sake. "How long have you known?" he finally asked as they pulled into their driveway overlooking Lake Whitewater. 2 weeks, Lily admitted, staring at her hands. "I wasn't sure at first. I noticed Mom's fingers would sometimes twitch when the nurses weren't looking. Then I found the phone. Inside their home, August settled Lily with hot chocolate before retreating to his study. The evidence lay before him. Screenshots of text messages between Vanessa and someone saved in her contacts as are. August's architectural mind, trained to see patterns, to build structures from nothing, began constructing a different kind of blueprint. One of betrayal. He accessed their financial records, discovering unusual withdrawals from their joint account over the past 6 months. Small enough not to raise immediate alarm, but totaling nearly $50,000. Next, he examined Vanessa's laptop. Her password, previously their anniversary date, had been changed. After several attempts, August leaned back, frustrated. Then, on impulse, he tried Raymond, and the screen unlocked. The name hit him like a physical blow. Raymond Voss, his college roommate and best man at their wedding. The godfather to Lily. It had been Raymond who recommended the insurance policy with the substantial payout in case of death or disability. Raymond, who had visited the hospital nearly as often as August himself, offering support, bringing coffee, checking on Lily. August's search history revealed the final pieces. Searches for remote properties in Costa Rica, information on offshore accounts, and a saved email confirming an appointment with a plastic surgeon in Mexico City for 3 weeks later, scheduled for Vanessa Voss. Cold fury replaced shock. August opened a new document and began to type, methodically listing every detail of their deception. Next, he created a second file, his plan. The following morning, August called Raymond from the hospital parking lot. "How's she doing?" Raymond asked, concern evident in his voice. "No change," August replied, injecting weariness into his tone. "Listen, I need a favor. The insurance company is requesting additional documentation. Could you stop by the office later? I'm buried at the hospital." "Of course, anything you need." August ended the call and entered the hospital, not to visit Vanessa, but to speak with Dr. Bennett. Their conversation was brief but productive. Afterward, he spoke with the hospital's security chief, an ex-military man named Floyd Gresham, who had once hired August's firm to design his cabin. That afternoon, August staged a meeting with his company's board, announcing a temporary leave of absence to focus on family matters. His COO, Naomi Prescott, would assume day-to-day operations. "Are you sure?" Naomi asked afterward, concern evident in her sharp features. They'd worked together for 15 years, and she knew him better than most. "I need time," he said simply. "For Lily. For myself." That night, August tucked his daughter into bed, sitting on the edge of her mattress longer than usual. "We need to talk about what happens next," he said gently. "I've made arrangements for you to stay with Aunt Diana for a while." "Dad, no," Lily protested. "It's not permanent," he promised. "But what I'm about to do, you can't be here for it." Lily studied him with eyes too old for her 12 years. "You're going to hurt them, aren't you?" August considered lying, but respected her too much. "Not physically, but they'll wish I had." Lily nodded slowly. "She doesn't deserve to be my mom anymore." And Raymond, he was supposed to protect our family, not destroy it. August kissed her forehead. "Pack for at least 3 weeks. Diana will meet you at the airport tomorrow." After Lily fell asleep, August descended to his basement workshop. Among the architectural models and design supplies, he retrieved a locked metal case. Inside lay items from his past that even Vanessa didn't know about. Documents from his time working on classified government buildings, security credentials, and specialized equipment. Before becoming an architect, August had served 4 years in the Marine Corps, followed by 3 years contracting with security firms that catered to government installations. His architectural success had buried that chapter of his life, but he had never forgotten the skills he'd acquired. By morning, August Wilson had disappeared, replaced by a man with one purpose: retribution. Chapter 3. Eyes wide open. Raymond Voss adjusted his Italian silk tie in the elevator mirror, ascending to August's office on the 32nd floor. At 42, Raymond had built a respectable career as an insurance broker, though his lifestyle exceeded his legitimate income, a fact hidden from the world through careful accounting and influential clients. When the doors opened, Naomi greeted him coldly. Their mutual dislike was nothing new. Raymond had always sensed she could see through him. "He's waiting for you," she said, leading him to August's corner office overlooking Baltimore Harbor. August sat behind his desk, uncharacteristically disheveled. "Thanks for coming," he said, voice hoarse. "The papers are here." He pushed a folder across the polished mahogany desk. Raymond scanned the documents, standard insurance forms requiring a counter-signature from the policy agent. As he signed, August poured 2 glasses of scotch, sliding one toward his friend. "To better days," August toasted. Raymond's phone buzzed. He glanced down at a text. "Nurse left. Come now." He quickly pocketed the device. "Everything okay?" August asked. "Client emergency," Raymond replied. "Listen, I need to run, but I'll visit Vanessa tonight." "Actually," August said, "I'm having her moved to a private facility in Delaware. The neurologist thinks a specialized treatment might help." Raymond's heart rate accelerated. I didn't realize. Which facility?" "I'll text you the details," August promised. "They're starting her on experimental treatments tomorrow." After Raymond departed, August remained motionless, replaying the flash of panic in the other man's eyes. In the adjacent room, Floyd Gresham removed his headphones. "Got all," the security chief confirmed, patting the recording equipment. "And you were right. He's heading to the hospital now." "And the tracker?" "Active. Planted it when I shook his hand." August nodded. "Let's go." At Johns Hopkins Hospital, August and Floyd watched from a security monitoring station as Raymond entered Vanessa's room. The hidden camera they'd installed that morning captured everything. Raymond locking the door, approaching the bed, leaning close to whisper in Vanessa's ear. Vanessa's eyes fluttered open. "You need to leave," Raymond hissed urgently. "August knows something. He's having you transferred tomorrow for treatments." "Impossible," Vanessa whispered back, fully alert. "He suspects nothing. He mentioned Delaware specifically. That's where we plan to." "Coincidence," she cut him off. "The money's already transferred. 3 more weeks and the insurance claim processes. We're too close to panic now." "What about Lily?" "She's been acting strange." Vanessa's face hardened. "She's a child, and she's August's problem once we're gone." Floyd glanced at August, whose expression remained impassive despite the cruel dismissal of their daughter. "We have everything we need," August said quietly. He texted Dr. Bennett, who entered Vanessa's room moments later, interrupting the conspirators' conversation. Vanessa immediately closed her eyes, resuming her comatose performance. "Mr. Voss," Dr. Bennett said stiffly, "visiting hours are over. I need to examine the patient." Raymond left reluctantly. Once alone with Vanessa, Dr. Bennett administered a sedative to ensure she remained unconscious, for real this time. That evening, August made 2 calls. The first to his personal attorney, Simone Alvarez, instructing her to prepare specific legal documents. The second to Diana, confirming Lily's arrival arrangements. As midnight approached, August drove to a neglected industrial district where a warehouse bore his company's for renovation sign. Inside, he prepared a space containing only the essentials: surveillance equipment, a desk, a cot, and physical evidence of Vanessa and Raymond's betrayal. On the wall hung architectural blueprints, not for buildings, but for the systematic dismantling of 2 lives. "You always told me patience was an architect's greatest virtue," August said to the empty room. "Let's see how patient you are, my love." The first phase of his plan was complete. Vanessa and Raymond believed their scheme was intact, unaware that August had already begun constructing their downfall, brick by carefully laid brick. Chapter 4: Foundations of Fear. 3 days after Lily's departure to Diana's home in Seattle, August's plan accelerated. Vanessa remained in the hospital, now under genuine sedation and constant monitoring by staff loyal to Dr. Bennett. The neurologist had been horrified by August's evidence and agreed to keep Vanessa's true condition confidential while August implemented his strategy. "Legally, I'm on thin ice," Dr. Bennett had admitted. "But what they plan to do to you and your daughter, I couldn't live with myself if I did nothing." Meanwhile, Raymond continued his routine, unaware of the surveillance tracking his every move. August monitored him from the warehouse, logging his patterns. Morning coffee at the same cafe, midday client meetings, evening visits to an upscale apartment building in the Arts District. On the 4th day, August made his first move. He sent an anonymous envelope to Raymond's office containing copies of his text messages with Vanessa. The accompanying note read simply, "Someone knows." That same afternoon, August called Raymond. "The transfer fell through," he explained. "The facility says Vanessa's condition doesn't meet their acceptance criteria." "That's unfortunate," Raymond replied, voice tight. "How are you holding up?" "Managing," August said. "Actually, would you check on the house tomorrow?" "The alarm system triggered. Probably just a power fluctuation, but I can't leave the hospital." "Of course." When Raymond arrived at the lake house the following day, he found everything undisturbed, except for a framed photo on the mantel that hadn't been there before. It showed him and Vanessa embracing on a beach in Cancun, a trip August had supposedly known nothing about. Raymond frantically searched for the photo, but left empty-handed, unaware of the cameras recording his panic. Meanwhile, August visited Western Shore Bank, where he and Vanessa kept their safe deposit box, with Simone Alvarez accompanying him. He opened the box to find it emptied of their emergency cash and several pieces of Vanessa's inherited jewelry. The bank manager confirmed Vanessa had accessed the box 6 weeks earlier. "We'll need that security footage," Simone stated, producing the necessary legal documents. The video revealed Vanessa and Raymond entering together, her laughing as she emptied the box. August watched impassively, adding the footage to his growing arsenal. That night, August replaced every lock on the lake house. The next morning, Raymond received another envelope at his office, this one containing a key with a note. "She trusted you with more than her heart." By the week's end, Raymond was unraveling. He made frantic daily visits to Vanessa, but with a nurse always present, he couldn't communicate freely. His calls to the unknown number on Vanessa's secret phone went unanswered, because August now controlled the device. On Sunday, August implemented the next phase. He texted Raymond from Vanessa's secret phone, plan compromised. "Move everything to secondary location. I'll make contact when safe." Raymond immediately drove to his apartment building, not to his own unit, but to one registered to a shell company August had discovered through financial forensics. Inside, Raymond frantically packed documents and valuables, unaware of Floyd Gresham photographing everything through a telephoto lens from the building opposite. As Raymond loaded his car, a uniformed police officer approached. August watched from nearby as the officer, actually Floyd's former military colleague, engaged Raymond in conversation, examining his driver's license before letting him go with a warning about illegal parking. "We have his alternate identity now," Floyd confirmed later at the warehouse. "Samuel Reed, complete with fake driver's license and credit cards." August nodded. "Track the accounts. I want to know where every penny is hidden." Floyd hesitated. "August, I've seen revenge destroy men. Are you sure about this?" August turned to the evidence wall, now expanded to include Raymond's fake identity documents and financial trails. "This isn't just revenge," he replied. "It's justice. For Lily, for the years they stole from us, for the future they planned to build on our destruction." The next day brought another development. Dr. Bennett called with news that Vanessa was fighting the sedation, becoming increasingly agitated. They couldn't keep her in this state indefinitely without raising questions. "It's time for phase 2, August decided. He instructed Dr. Bennett to reduce Vanessa's sedation, allowing her to wake, but not to leave. Hospital security would ensure she remained in the building while August sprang his next trap. When Vanessa regained consciousness, she found herself facing not August, but Simone Alvarez. "Mrs. Wilson," the attorney began crisply, "I'm here to inform you that your husband has filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment and premeditated fraud." "That's absurd," Vanessa sputtered. "I've been in a coma." "We both know that's not true," Simone replied, sliding forward printouts of the text messages. "What we don't know yet is the full extent of your criminal conspiracy. Until we do, your assets have been frozen by court order." The blood drained from Vanessa's face. "I want a lawyer." "Excellent idea," Simone agreed. "You'll need one." As Simone departed, she nodded to August waiting down the hall. "She's rattled," the attorney confirmed. "Expect a call to Raymond within the hour." August returned to his surveillance post, watching as Vanessa frantically called Raymond. Their conversation, recorded through both the hospital room microphones and Raymond's tapped phone, confirmed everything. He knows, Vanessa hissed. Not everything, but enough. We need to accelerate. The accounts are locked, Raymond responded. I can't access anything in your names. Use the offshore accounts. I'm trying, but something's wrong. The transfers are being declined. August smiled grimly. Floyd's military connections had proven invaluable, flagging the accounts with international banking authorities for suspected terrorism financing. A temporary measure, but enough to paralyze their funds for crucial days. Within hours, Vanessa checked herself out of the hospital against medical advice. August tracked her to Raymond's apartment, where their frantic conversation revealed the final pieces of their plan. The Costa Rican property purchased under false names, the scheduled plastic surgeries, the fake passports awaiting them in Mexico City. We still have options, Raymond insisted. I have cash reserves. We can disappear now. Without the insurance money? That was the whole point. We're talking about survival now, Vanessa. August isn't the pushover you thought. August closed his laptop, having heard enough. The foundation was laid. Now came the walls of their prison. Chapter 5. Structural Collapse. 1 week into August's orchestrated descent into Raymond and Vanessa's lives, they attempted their first escape. August's surveillance tracked them to Baltimore-Washington International Airport, boarding separate flights. Raymond to Miami, Vanessa to Dallas, with connecting flights to Mexico City. They never reached their destinations. As Raymond waited at his gate, 2 TSA agents approached, requesting he follow them to a private room. His fake passport, under the name Samuel Reed, had triggered a security alert. Hours of questioning followed, his luggage thoroughly searched. Though eventually released, he missed his flight and returned to his apartment shaken. Vanessa fared worse. Her flight was diverted to Atlanta due to mechanical issues, where she was detained by customs officials who claimed her passport showed signs of tampering. By the time she returned to Baltimore, Raymond had received another anonymous message. Every exit has been sealed. August watched their growing desperation from his command center, where Floyd monitored their movements and communications. The legal noose tightened simultaneously. Simone had obtained emergency court orders freezing all discovered assets, pending investigation of potential insurance fraud. They're running out of options, Floyd noted, reviewing surveillance footage of Raymond withdrawing cash from an ATM, his fourth that day, staying under the daily limit. That's the point, Auguste replied. When you corner an animal, it reveals its true nature. That evening, Auguste received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He activated the recording equipment before answering. Auguste, Vanessa's voice, once beloved, now sent ice through his veins. We need to talk. About your miraculous recovery? He replied coldly. Or about your plans with Raymond? A pause. So you know, everything. I doubt that, she said, regaining confidence. Let's meet. Just us. We were married for 12 years. Don't I deserve a chance to explain? August considered his next move carefully. The boathouse. Tomorrow. Noon. After ending the call, Floyd looked concerned. It could be a trap. Undoubtedly, August agreed. But not for me. The following day, August arrived at the lakeside boathouse 30 minutes early, having already prepared the space. Hidden cameras and microphones had been installed, recording devices activated. He waited in the small structure where he and Vanessa had once spent summer afternoons, where Lily had learned to swim. Vanessa arrived precisely at noon, alone. She'd taken care with her appearance. Hairstyled, makeup applied, dressed in an outfit August had once complimented. The performance wasn't for his benefit. It was habitual manipulation. Thank you for coming, she began, sitting across from him at the small table. I know how this must look. Do you? August remained expressionless. Enlighten me. Raymond and I. She hesitated. It wasn't planned. It just happened. Like the fake coma? Like the insurance fraud? Like abandoning our daughter? Vanessa's mask slipped momentarily before she recovered. I never meant to hurt Lily. Yet you called her collateral damage. Her eyes widened slightly. Confirmation she recognized her own words. What do you want, August? She asked finally. Money? Is that why you've frozen everything? I want to understand, he replied. When did I lose you? Or was it all a lie from the beginning? The question seemed to catch her off guard. For a moment, genuine emotion crossed her face. The first years were real, she admitted. But you were always working, always building your precious firm. I became another piece of furniture in your perfect house. And Raymond, he saw me, she said simply. He made time for me. August nodded slowly. And the accident? The coma? An opportunity, she replied, cold calculation returning to her eyes. Insurance pays triple for permanent disability. With your power of attorney, I could authorize transfers without suspicion. Eventually, you'd give up hope, move on. Clean, simple. Except for Lily. Vanessa shrugged. You're the better parent anyway. The casual cruelty stunned even August, who thought himself prepared for anything. What now, she asked. You turn us in? Scandal, public humiliation, dragging Lily through it all? Or we make a deal? August leaned forward. What kind of deal? Raymond and I disappear. You get full custody. No messy divorce. No public spectacle. I sign whatever you want. In exchange for unfreeze one offshore account, just one, and give us a head start. August appeared to consider this, then slowly nodded. I'll need account details, and you'll sign the papers today. Relief flooded Vanessa's features. I knew you'd be reasonable. You always were practical. August extracted a document from his briefcase. Divorce papers Simone had prepared, granting him full custody and all assets. Sign, he instructed, offering a pen. Then we'll discuss the account. Vanessa's signature flowed across the paper without hesitation. August folded the document carefully into his briefcase. The account information, she prompted. There's one more thing, August said, removing a second document. A confession. Vanessa's smile vanished. Absolutely not. It's insurance, he explained. If you ever contact Lily or attempt to challenge the divorce, this goes to the police. Her eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. You'd never put Lily through that publicity. Sign it, and we'll never find out. Their standoff lasted nearly a minute before Vanessa snatched the pen, scrawling her name on the confession with barely concealed fury. The account, she demanded. Now, check your phone, August instructed. Her phone chimed with an email notification. She opened it, frowning at the bank statement, showing an active account in the Cayman Islands with a substantial balance. This isn't ours, she said. No, August agreed. It's new, untraceable. Your head start is promised. As Vanessa studied the document, August casually mentioned, Raymond should be receiving similar papers from Simone right now. Once he signs, you're both free to go. Vanessa's head snapped up. You sent someone to Raymond? Of course. The deal includes both of you. She stood abruptly. I need to call him. Why? August asked mildly. Don't you trust him to make the right decision? The question hung in the air as Vanessa hurried from the boathouse, already dialing Raymond's number. August gathered the signed documents and exited unhurriedly. In his car, he called Floyd. Is it done? Raymond signed everything, Floyd confirmed. He didn't even read it after I showed him the bank statement. And the tracker? Active in both phones and vehicles. August started his car. Now we wait for them to betray each other. The trap was set. The walls were closing in. All that remained was the roof to complete their prison. Chapter 6. Load-bearing lies. 2 days after the meetings, Raymond and Vanessa made their move. August tracked them to Baltimore Harbor, where they boarded a private yacht registered to one of Raymond's wealthy clients. Their destination, international waters, then a coastal transfer to a larger vessel bound for Venezuela, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. Should we stop them? Floyd asked, monitoring their movement from the warehouse. Not yet, August replied. Let them think they've escaped. He opened his laptop to review the latest report from Simone. The divorce was finalized through expedited channels. His connections and Vanessa's signed confession providing leverage for the judge to bypass normal waiting periods. Lily's custody was secured. All assets transferred solely to August's name. But these legal victories were merely the framework for August's true plan. The confession Vanessa had signed contained more than an admission of insurance fraud. It detailed an elaborate scheme involving blackmail and theft of proprietary architectural designs, implicating Raymond as the mastermind. Similarly, Raymond's signed confession painted Vanessa as the manipulative architect who had seduced him into betraying his best friend, claiming she had previously done the same to wealthy men across 3 states. Neither document would ever reach authorities. Their purpose was far more insidious. At precisely 2 p.m., August activated the final phase. An email sent to Vanessa contained Raymond's confession, along with GPS coordinates for a dead drop containing emergency cash if they became separated. A similar email reached Raymond minutes later, with Vanessa's confession and different coordinates. Through satellite tracking, August watched their vessel's progress halt in the Chesapeake Bay. The yacht circled for nearly an hour, evidence of the heated confrontation occurring on board as the conspirators faced their mutual betrayals. By nightfall, the yacht returned to harbor. Surveillance footage showed Raymond disembarking alone, Vanessa nowhere in sight. August's pulse quickened as he dialed Floyd. "She's not with him. Get eyes on the boat immediately." Within the hour, Floyd called back. Coast Guard conducted a random safety inspection. Vanessa wasn't aboard. Raymond claimed she'd changed her mind and taken a tender back to shore earlier. She wouldn't abandon the plan, August mused. Not willingly. The implication hung between them. August made another call, this one to a trusted contact within the Baltimore Police Department. An anonymous tip would point them toward Raymond's yacht, suggesting they bring sonar equipment. While authorities mobilized, August tracked Raymond to his Baltimore apartment, where he frantically packed a single suitcase and emptied his safe. The building's security cameras, accessed through August's connections with a property management company, captured his every desperate move. Raymond's phone rang continuously, calls from Vanessa's phone that went unanswered. August knew the calls weren't actually for Vanessa. They came from a programmed auto dialer he'd set up. Each missed call would increase Raymond's paranoia, especially once he checked the fake bank account August had created. By morning, the promised funds had cleared, showing a balance of $2 million. Raymond immediately attempted a transfer to another account, only to receive an error message. Transaction flagged for security verification. Please contact customer service. The number provided connected to a recording in August's voice. You betrayed the wrong man. You have 24 hours before everything comes to light. Raymond fled the apartment, driving erratically through the city before checking into a motel under his Samuel Reed identity. There, he made a series of increasingly frantic calls to contacts who might provide new documentation, to travel agencies specializing in discreet relocations, even to Vanessa's phone despite believing she had betrayed him. Meanwhile, the police investigation at the harbor intensified. Sonar equipment detected an anomaly near where the yacht had been anchored. Divers prepared to investigate. August watched these developments from his warehouse command center, feeling not satisfaction, but a cold clarity. The structures he'd designed, both physical buildings and this elaborate trap, always followed the same principle. Remove one key support, and everything collapses. That evening, he received the call he'd been waiting for. The police had found a weighted bag containing women's clothing in the bay. No body, but evidence of a potential crime. Raymond, as the yacht's register operator, was wanted for questioning. August made his final move. He sent simultaneous text messages to Raymond and to Vanessa's phone, which he now controlled. To Raymond, they found her. Run or surrender, your choice. To Vanessa's phone, which Raymond would see trying to call, I trusted you with my life. You'll pay for this. Raymond panicked. He abandoned the motel, driving recklessly toward the Canadian border. State troopers, alerted by August's anonymous tip about a fleeing murder suspect, created a roadblock on Interstate 83. Raymond attempted to evade it, lost control of his vehicle, and crashed into a ravine. He survived with minor injuries, but was taken into custody. Among his possessions, police found a blood-stained scarf identified as Vanessa's, planted in his luggage by August during the boathouse meeting. By midnight, news outlets reported Raymond Voss's arrest in connection with the disappearance of Vanessa Wilson, previously thought to be comatose following a car accident. The sensational story spread rapidly. The The best friend, the betrayed husband, the missing wife, the faked coma, the insurance scheme. August watched the media frenzy from his warehouse, expressionless. He closed his laptop, gathered the evidence that would never be needed, and methodically destroyed it all, except for one file containing the real truth, secured for Lily when she was old enough to understand. As dawn broke, August drove to the lake house for the first time in weeks. Inside, he systematically removed every trace of Vanessa: photographs, clothing, personal items, placing them in boxes for storage. Not destruction, but removal. Clinical and complete. In Vanessa's home studio, he paused before her unfinished paintings. Among them stood a family portrait she'd been working on before the accident. August, Vanessa, and Lily on the dock of their lake house, seemingly perfect. He studied it dispassionately before turning it to face the wall. His phone rang. The caller ID showed Dr. Bennett. "It's done," the neurologist said without preamble. "She's been checked in under the name you provided. The facility understands the situation. Will she be comfortable?" August asked. "As much as possible, given the circumstances. The isolation ward is secure. Without additional identification or outside contact, she could remain there indefinitely." August ended the call and gazed out at the lake, where early morning mist obscured the horizon. Vanessa wasn't dead. That would have been too merciful. Instead, she was now the patient she had pretended to be, committed to a private psychiatric facility in western Pennsylvania under a Jane Doe status, courtesy of Dr. Bennett's connections. She would experience the true isolation of being trapped in her own body, surrounded by medical staff who believed her claims of being Vanessa Wilson were delusional. The ultimate irony: her fake coma had become a real prison. With Raymond facing murder charges and Vanessa institutionalized, the second act of August's revenge was complete. The foundation had crumbled, the walls had collapsed, and now the structure of their betrayal lay in ruins. August picked up his phone and dialed Diana's number. It was time to bring Lily home. Chapter 7. Clearing the debris. 3 months after Raymond's arrest, August sat in a sterile conference room at the Maryland State Correctional Facility. Across the table, Raymond, once his closest friend, looked diminished in his orange jumpsuit. His trial for Vanessa's murder was scheduled to begin in 6 weeks. "I didn't kill her," Raymond insisted, desperation evident in his hollow eyes. "You have to believe me, like I believed you with everything else." August replied evenly. "My business, my marriage, my daughter's well-being, I deserve whatever happens to me for that," Raymond admitted. "But I didn't hurt Vanessa. We argued on the boat, yes, but she was alive when I last saw her." August studied him impassively. "The evidence suggests otherwise." "Evidence can be manipulated," Raymond countered. "You know that better than anyone." A subtle acknowledgement passed between them, unspoken recognition that August had orchestrated this downfall with architect's precision. "Why are you here?" Raymond finally asked. August slid a document across the table. "A confession, the real one this time. Sign it, and I'll ensure you serve your sentence in minimum security." Raymond scanned the pages. "This admits everything: the affair, the insurance fraud, the plan to disappear, but not murder. Because you didn't commit that particular crime?" August confirmed. "Not technically." Understanding dawned in Raymond's eyes. "She's alive. This isn't mercy," August clarified. "Sign the confession, serve 15 years for fraud and conspiracy, and walk away with your life. Refuse, and the murder evidence becomes more convincing. And Vanessa is experiencing the consequences of her choices," August replied. "As we all must." Raymond signed without further hesitation. Outside the prison, August met with Simone, who took possession of the confession. "This closes the financial case," she confirmed. "The insurance fraud charges alone carry substantial penalties. And the murder investigation? Without a body, it was always circumstantial. With this confession, prosecutors will accept a plea deal for the financial crimes." She studied him carefully. "You never intended for him to be convicted of murder." "Justice, not vengeance," August replied. "Raymond will lose 15 years, approximately what he and Vanessa attempted to steal from Lily and me." As August drove home, he called Diana, who had remained in Baltimore after bringing Lily back. His sister-in-law, technically no longer family but still firmly in his corner, had been invaluable in helping Lily adjust. "How is she today?" he asked. "Better," Diana replied. "She actually laughed during our movie night. First time I've heard that in months." August felt a weight lift slightly. Lily's emotional recovery had become his primary focus. The trauma of her mother's betrayal and apparent death had left deep scars, requiring careful therapy and constant support. At home, August found Lily sitting on the dock, legs dangling above the water. He joined her silently, respecting her space while making his presence available. "Dad," she said eventually, "is it wrong that I don't miss her more?" The question cut through pretense. August considered his response carefully. "Grief isn't linear," he said, "and it's complicated when the person you're grieving isn't who you thought they were. I keep remembering good things, baking cookies, painting together. Then I remember the texts and feel sick." She looked at him directly. "Did you ever suspect?" "Before the accident?" "No," August admitted. "Your mother was skilled at concealment." "Like you?" Lily asked perceptively. August met his daughter's gaze. At 12, she possessed insight beyond her years, partly inherited, partly forged by trauma. "I've never lied to you," he said, "but there are things I haven't shared because I believe they would cause you more pain." "About Mom?" "Yes." Lily absorbed this. "Someday, I want to know everything. Not now, but someday. When you're ready," August promised, "you'll have the whole truth." They sat in companionable silence as the sun set over the lake. August mentally reviewed his remaining tasks, finalizing Lily's trust fund, restructuring his business to allow more family time, and the quarterly check on Vanessa's continued containment. The foundation of his new life was taking shape, built not on revenge, but on protection and truth. The architect in him recognized that the strongest structures were those designed to weather future storms, not merely survive past ones. That night, August received a call from Floyd Gresham. "There's been an incident at the facility," the security chief reported. "Nothing serious, but she's becoming more insistent about her identity. Started reciting personal details about you and Lily to one of the nurses. Increase monitoring," August instructed. "If necessary, we'll arrange a transfer to the Wyoming location." "August," Floyd said hesitantly, "this can't go on forever. Eventually, someone will listen, investigate. It won't be forever," August assured him. "Just long enough." After ending the call, August opened his safe and removed the file containing the complete truth, evidence of Vanessa's fraud, Raymond's confession, and documentation of August's methodical revenge. Someday this would belong to Lily, allowing her to decide Vanessa's ultimate fate. Until then, August would maintain the illusion that had become reality. Vanessa Wilson had disappeared, presumed dead. Her betrayal had been buried, and her husband, once blindsided by deception, had transformed into the architect of justice. Chapter 8. New Blueprints. 1 year after Vanessa's disappearance, August stood at the front of a small university lecture hall, concluding his guest presentation to architecture students. His firm had not only survived the scandal, but thrived under his renewed focus and Naomi's partnership. They'd recently won the contract for a revolutionary sustainable housing development that had garnered international attention. "Architecture isn't just about buildings," he told the students. "It's about creating spaces that withstand both physical stress and the passage of time. The true test of design is resilience." Among the audience, August noticed a woman with auburn hair observing him intently. As students gathered around him afterward with questions, she waited patiently at the periphery. When the crowd dispersed, she approached. "Powerful words about resilience," she said, from someone who's clearly tested the concept. "Professor Madeleine Rousseau," she continued, offering her hand. "I teach structural engineering here. Your housing project is remarkable. I've been using it as a case study." August shook her hand, experiencing an unexpected moment of connection. "August Wilson, thank you for the invitation to speak. Actually, that was my colleague's doing, but I insisted on attending." Her direct gaze held intelligence and something else, understanding without pity. "Would you be interested in coffee?" I have questions about your cantilever design that weren't covered in the lecture. For the first time in months, August felt something shift within him. Not healing exactly, but movement. I'd like that. Coffee extended to dinner, their conversation flowing from architectural theory to personal philosophy. Madeline had lost her husband to cancer 5 years earlier and raised their son alone while building her academic career. Grief changes your fundamental structure, she observed. You either collapse or rebuild stronger at the broken places. August appreciated her directness. There was no need to maintain facades with someone who recognized the architecture of loss. The following week, he invited her to dinner at his home. Lily, now 13, watched their interaction with cautious optimism. After Madeline departed, his daughter offered her assessment. She's smart, and she doesn't do that annoying head tilt thing when she talks about mom. August smiled. The sympathy tilt. Exactly. Lily considered further. I like that she asks real questions instead of just saying everything will be okay. She understands reconstruction, August said. Are you going to see her again? Would that be all right with you? Lily nodded thoughtfully. Just go slowly. I'm not ready for a new mom. Neither am I, August assured her. But maybe we're ready for a friend. As summer arrived, August maintained his careful monitoring of both Raymond's incarceration and Vanessa's containment. Raymond had adjusted to prison life with surprising adaptation, teaching financial literacy to fellow inmates. August arranged for qualified legal representation to ensure his plea deal remained intact, not from compassion, but principle. Vanessa's situation proved more complex. Her insistence on her true identity had intensified, requiring her transfer to a more remote facility in Wyoming that specialized in delusional disorders. There, under the name Jane Harper, she received treatment for her fixed false belief of being Vanessa Wilson. August received monthly reports from the facility director, a former military psychiatrist who understood the unusual arrangement. The substantial payments from an offshore account, traced to Raymond Voss if investigated, ensured discretion and continued care. She's developed a new painting style, the latest report noted. Quite remarkable. Dark landscapes with distant figures. The art therapist believes it represents progress in accepting her current reality. August stored these reports in the growing file for Lily. The dossier now included newspaper articles about Raymond's conviction, medical evaluations of Vanessa's mental state, and August's own detailed account of events. Neither justification nor confession, but truth. In late July, August finalized plans for the lake house renovation, his first architectural project solely for himself since before his marriage. The design maintained the structure's bones, while reconfiguring spaces that held too many memories. Madeline reviewed his blueprints one evening on the dock, Lily offering occasional input as they refined details. The easy collaboration felt like another form of rebuilding. You've eliminated all the hidden spaces, Madeline observed, noting the open floor plan and transparent wall sections. No place for secrets. Exactly, August confirmed. As summer transitioned to fall, August received an unexpected call from Raymond's attorney. During a routine prison transfer, Raymond had attempted escape. In the ensuing pursuit, he'd sustained critical injuries. Hospital prognosis: unlikely to survive the night. August drove to the hospital alone, unsure of his own motivations. In the ICU, Raymond lay handcuffed to the bed, machines monitoring his failing body. "You came," Raymond whispered, eyes flickering open as August approached. "Yes, I didn't expect that." August studied the man who had once been his closest friend. "Neither did I. Is she really alive?" Raymond asked, voice barely audible. August considered lying, but found no purpose in it. "Yes." Relief smoothed Raymond's pain-creased features. "Good. Not because I care about her anymore, but I didn't want to be a murderer. You are many things, Raymond, but not that." Raymond's breathing grew labored. "Your revenge, it was perfect. The architect's touch. It wasn't revenge," August corrected. "It was justice. Is there a difference? Revenge destroys the avenger. Justice preserves them." Raymond's eyes closed briefly before reopening with effort. "Tell Lily, I'm sorry For everything. I will, August promised, though unsure if he would fulfill it. And August, when does it end? The justice. August considered the question. When the debt is paid. Raymond nodded faintly. Mine is almost settled then. His eyes drifted shut again. The perfect design. You always were the better architect. August remained until Raymond's breathing evened into unconsciousness. He left without witnessing the final moments, knowing the structure of their connection had reached its inevitable conclusion. Raymond died at 3:17 a.m. August received notification while sitting in his study, reviewing the Wyoming facility's latest report on Vanessa. With methodical precision, he updated both files. The architecture of his revenge, no, his justice, had withstood every test. One support beam had now been permanently removed. The question remained whether the overall structure required the second to remain in place. That decision, August determined, would eventually belong to Lily. When she was ready for the whole truth, she would inherit both the knowledge and the power to determine Vanessa's fate. Until then, August would continue building their new life, a design focused not on the past shadows but on the transparent spaces of their future. Chapter 9. The Final Inspection. 5 years after Vanessa's disappearance, August stood in the renovated living room of the lake house, surveying the gathered guests. His firm had just won the prestigious Pritzker Architecture Prize for the Sustainable Community Development, now widely studied as a model for future urban planning. The celebration was intimate. Key team members, close friends, and family. Lily, now 17, moved confidently among the guests, her recent acceptance to Cornell's architecture program a source of quiet pride for August. Diana chatted with colleagues near the fireplace, while Madeline, now a permanent fixture in their lives though they maintained separate residences, discussed structural innovations with Naomi. As conversations flowed around him, August's phone vibrated with a text from Floyd Gresham. Wyoming report arrived. Status unchanged. Call when convenient. August acknowledged the message, but didn't allow it to disturb his present. The Wyoming facility where Vanessa remained had become a distant satellite in his consciousness, monitored but no longer central. Later that evening, as guests departed, Lily joined August on the rebuilt dock extending over the lake. The structure was stronger than its predecessor, designed to withstand harsher weather while appearing deceptively delicate, much like the young woman herself. I want the file, Lily said without preamble. The one you've been keeping. About Mom. Though startled by the timing, August had anticipated this moment. You're sure? I'm leaving for college in 2 months, she replied. I need to know everything before I go, to decide what to do. August studied his daughter's profile, the determined set of her jaw reminiscent of his own. It's comprehensive and difficult. I know. I've had 5 years to prepare. They sat in silence as darkness settled over the water. Finally, August nodded. Tomorrow morning. The following day, August unlocked his office safe and removed the extensive file he'd maintained since the beginning. It contained everything. The original text messages, medical reports, surveillance transcripts, financial records, Raymond's confession, and detailed documentation of August's orchestrated justice. Most importantly, it contained the current location and status of Vanessa Wilson, now known as Jane Harper, at the Wyoming psychiatric facility where she continued to receive treatment for her delusional identity disorder. August placed the file on the table between them in Lily's personal studio, a space he'd included in the lake house renovation for her burgeoning architectural talents. Take whatever time you need, he said. I'll be in my office when you're ready to talk. Hours passed as Lily absorbed the complete truth. August waited, reviewing designs for his next project, a memorial center for victims of fraud and deception. The irony wasn't lost on him. When Lily finally appeared in his doorway, her eyes were clear despite evident tears. You never told me you visited her, she said, holding a report from 2 years earlier documenting August's sole visit to the Wyoming facility. It wasn't relevant to your decision, he replied honestly. What was she like? August considered his response carefully. Diminished, still insisting on her true identity, but her conviction had weakened. The staff reported she'd begun incorporating elements of her Jane Harper identity into her self-perception. A fractured foundation, Lily murmured, the architectural metaphor natural to them both. Yes. Lily settled into the chair across from him. Did she ask about me? She did. I told her you were thriving. Was that the truth? By then, yes. August met his daughter's searching gaze. You survived her betrayal. Then you thrived despite it. Lily nodded, processing this. The file says I have the authority to determine her status once I turn 18. That's correct. The trust one established gives you legal control over the Wyoming arrangement on your 18th birthday. You can maintain it, modify it, or terminate it entirely. And if I terminate it, she will be released. The trust includes provisions for her reintegration, modest housing, basic income, new identification documents. She could rebuild a life, though not with her former identity. Or I could leave her there indefinitely, Lily stated, testing the weight of this power. You could, August acknowledged, though I wouldn't recommend carrying that burden forever. Lily studied him with a perceptiveness that had only sharpened with age. You never intended her punishment to be permanent, did you? Despite everything she did. I intended justice, not eternal damnation, August replied. The specific duration was always meant to be your decision. Because she hurt me most of all. Because you deserved agency in the resolution. Lily fell silent, considering this. Finally, she asked, what would you do if it were solely your decision? After 5 years of reflection, August leaned back in his chair. I would release her, but with conditions. No contact with either of us. Permanent relocation at least 1,000 miles from here. Financial support contingent on continued therapy. Mercy within boundaries, Lily observed. Justice with closure, August corrected. Continuing her confinement serves no purpose beyond vengeance, which corrodes the soul of the avenger. You deserve freedom from that burden. When did you reach this conclusion? Gradually, definitely after Raymond's death. August paused. Building is more fulfilling than destroying, even when destruction is deserved. Lily gathered the file carefully. I need more time to decide. You have until your birthday. No pressure either way. As she turned to leave, she hesitated. Dad, was any of it real? Her love for us? August considered the complexity of this question, one he'd examined countless times himself. I believe the early years were genuine, he said finally, before discontent corrupted her. Some foundations are sound, but can't support what's built upon them. Like your marriage. Yes. Lily nodded, satisfied with this architectural truth, if not comforted by it. 3 months later, August helped move Lily into her Cornell dormitory. As they said goodbye, she pressed an envelope into his hand. My decision, she explained. I've had it drawn up legally, as specified in the trust documents. August didn't open it until he returned home. Inside, he found detailed instructions. Vanessa would be released on Lily's 18th birthday, with the conditions August had suggested, plus one addition, a letter Lily had written explaining her decision. I choose this not because you deserve freedom, the letter concluded, but because I deserve peace. This isn't forgiveness, it's closure. Never contact us. Never attempt to explain or apologize. Consider this mercy your final gift from the family you discarded. August placed the document in his safe, recognition settling within him. His daughter had chosen resilience over resentment, construction over destruction. The architectural principle applied to emotional recovery. 1 month later, on Lily's 18th birthday, August received confirmation that Vanessa had been released from the Wyoming facility. The detailed termination report included her final psychological evaluation, still showing persistent identity confusion, but deemed functional for supervised reintegration. She had been transported to Portland, Oregon, provided with an apartment lease, basic furnishings, and 6 months of financial support. The trust would continue minimal payments contingent on her maintaining therapy and respecting the no-contact order. Her final statement to the facility director had been recorded. Tell them I understand now. The price of betrayal. That evening, August and Lily shared a video call. She from her dormitory, he from his lake house office. It's done, he confirmed. Lily nodded. Good. Now we can both focus on building rather than remembering. The architect's perspective, Auguste noted with pride. I learned from a best, she replied. Even the lessons you taught unconsciously. After their call ended, Auguste walked to the lake's edge. The water reflected moonlight in fractured patterns, broken but beautiful. Like memory, like recovery, like justice served and finally complete. He removed his wedding ring, unworn for years but kept in his safe as a reminder, and studied it one last time before casting it into the deep water. The architect of justice had completed his final inspection. The structure was sound, the foundation secure. The design had withstood every test. August Wilson returned to his home, leaving the past beneath the lake's dark surface, focusing instead on the blueprints of tomorrow, designs built not for retribution, but for life. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there. Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Life. Matthew Combs adjusted his safety glasses and powered down the lathe in his home workshop. At 38, he'd built a reputation as one of the most innovative mechanical engineers at Lockheed Martin, but his real passion lay in the intricate metalwork he crafted in his garage. The precision required in both his professional and personal projects had taught him patience, attention to detail, and the value of methodical thinking. "Dad, dinner!" His 16-year-old son Eric called from the back door. Behind him, 13-year-old Lana peered out curiously at the brass component Matthew had been machining. "What are you making now?" Lana asked, her bright eyes reflecting the same curiosity that made her excel in her science classes. "Part of a custom lock mechanism," Matthew said, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "Sometimes the old ways are the most reliable." As they walked toward the house, Matthew felt the familiar surge of contentment that came with his evening routine. The suburban Denver home he'd bought 12 years ago still felt like a sanctuary. Lori had done wonders with the interior design, her artistic eye transforming their house into something that belonged in a magazine. Lori Donovan Combs stood at the stove, her auburn hair catching the warm kitchen light. At 35, she still turned heads, but what had initially drawn Matthew to her wasn't just her beauty. It was her apparent depth, her claims of volunteering with various charities, her passionate discussions about helping those less fortunate. "Smells incredible," Matthew said, kissing her cheek. She tensed slightly, as she had been doing more frequently lately. "Just spaghetti," she said dismissively. "Charlie Ingram called. He can come look at the chest freezer tomorrow morning. Said he's the best appliance repair guy in Jefferson County." Matthew nodded. The 20-year-old chest freezer in the basement had been making concerning noises for weeks. Lori insisted they needed to get it fixed rather than replaced. She claimed it had sentimental value from her grandmother. Over dinner, Eric talked excitedly about his acceptance to the engineering program at Colorado School of Mines. "Dad, I want to be just like you. Build things that matter, solve real problems." Matthew felt pride swell in his chest. Both his children had inherited his analytical mind and moral compass. They questioned things, thought critically, and had strong senses of right and wrong. Speaking of solving problems, Lana interjected. "Mrs. Henderson at school said 3 more kids have gone missing from Denver in the past 6 months. That's really scary." Lori's fork clattered against her plate. "Don't talk about such horrible things at dinner," she snapped, then quickly softened her tone. "Sorry, honey. That kind of news just upsets me." Matthew studied his wife's face. Lori had always been emotional about news stories, but lately, her reaction seemed more intense, almost panicked. He made a mental note to pay closer attention. After dinner, while Lori claimed she was going to her book club, Matthew helped the kids with homework. Eric was working on calculus problems that reminded Matthew of his own engineering school days, while Lana puzzled over a chemistry set Matthew had bought her. "Dad," Lana said quietly, "has Mom seemed different to you lately?" Matthew looked up from Eric's derivatives. His daughter had always been perceptive beyond her years. Different how? She gets these phone calls and goes outside to talk. And yesterday, I saw her putting something in the freezer downstairs, but when I asked what it was, she got really angry. Not normal angry, scared angry. Eric glanced up from his homework. I noticed too, and she's been gone more nights, claiming book club or volunteer work. But her clothes don't smell like other people's houses. They smell like, I don't know, chemicals. Matthew felt a chill run down his spine, but he maintained his calm exterior. His children were observant and intelligent. If they were noticing inconsistencies, there were inconsistencies to notice. I'm sure it's nothing serious, he said reassuringly. But good detective work, you too. Always trust your instincts, but gather evidence before drawing conclusions. That night, Matthew lay awake listening to Lori's steady breathing beside him. Her phone buzzed at 2:47 a.m. In the blue glow of the screen, he saw her carefully slip out of bed and pad quietly downstairs. Through their bedroom window, he watched her pacing in the backyard, gesturing animatedly during what appeared to be an intense conversation. When she returned 20 minutes later, Matthew pretended to be asleep. But his engineer's mind was already working, cataloging inconsistencies and formulating hypotheses. Tomorrow, Charlie Ingram would fix the freezer. Matthew had no idea that this routine repair would shatter everything he thought he knew about his life. Chapter 2. The Discovery. Charlie Ingram arrived at 9:15 a.m. sharp, a weathered man in his 50s with calloused hands and kind eyes. He carried a toolkit that looked like it had seen decades of service, and Matthew immediately liked his no-nonsense demeanor. "Appreciate you fitting us in," Matthew said, leading Charlie through the house toward the basement. "My wife says the freezer's been in her family for years." "No problem. These old chest freezers, they're built like tanks. Usually just need a little TLC." Charlie paused at the top of the basement stairs. "She around?" "Some folks like to hover while I work." "Book club meeting," Matthew replied. "She volunteers a lot." The lie came easily, though Matthew wasn't entirely sure why Lori had insisted on being out during the repair. The basement was finished but rarely used, serving mainly as storage and housing the old chest freezer in the far corner. The unit was humming loudly, its compressor working overtime. "Yeah, she's struggling," Charlie said, kneeling beside the freezer. "Mind if I unplug her and take a look inside? Sometimes there's ice buildup that interferes with the mechanisms." Matthew nodded, settling into a nearby chair with his laptop to work on some engineering schematics while Charlie worked. The familiar sounds of diagnostic work, the clink of tools, the occasional grunt of effort, created a comfortable background. 20 minutes later, Charlie's work sounds stopped abruptly. "Mr. Combs?" Charlie's voice had changed, taking on a strained quality that made Matthew look up from his computer. Charlie was standing perfectly still beside the open freezer, his face pale and his hands trembling slightly. "What is it?" Matthew asked, rising from his chair. "Sir, I need you to call the police. Right now." Charlie's voice was barely above a whisper. Matthew moved closer, but Charlie held up a shaking hand. Don't look. Just call the police." "Charlie, what the hell?" "Please, Mr. Combs. Trust me on this. Call 911. Tell them you need detectives and the coroner. Then I need you to get your kids and go somewhere safe." The engineer in Matthew demanded data, demanded to understand what was happening. He stepped around Charlie and looked into the freezer. The cold air hit his face, but it wasn't the temperature that made him stagger backward. Wrapped in clear plastic beneath packages of frozen vegetables were human remains. Not old remains, recent ones. And underneath, partially visible, he could make out identification cards and personal effects. Matthew's analytical mind cataloged details even as his stomach churned. The methodical packaging, the deliberate concealment beneath everyday items, the organized nature of the storage. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was systematic. "Oh God," Matthew whispered, then louder, "Oh God, no." Charlie gripped his shoulder. "Mr. Combs, listen to me carefully. While fixing the temperature control, I found more than just bodies. There are photos, documents, what looks like records. This is organized, professional." Matthew's hands shook as he pulled out his phone. His mind raced through implications. Lori's late-night phone calls, her mysterious absences, her panic about the missing children Lana had mentioned. "Why did you tell me to get my kids?" Matthew asked as he dialed 911. Charlie's expression was grim. "Because one of those ID cards in there, it belongs to someone reported missing 2 weeks ago. And there's a notebook with dates, locations, and—" Charlie swallowed hard. "And what looks like a schedule. Your wife's handwriting is on some of the pages." The 911 operator answered, but Matthew could barely form words. His perfect life, his loving wife, his safe home, everything was crumbling around him. 911, what's your emergency? We found there are bodies in my freezer. Human remains. I need police and detectives." As he gave his address, Matthew's mind began shifting from shock to something harder, more focused. The same analytical approach that made him excellent at engineering problems was kicking in. Evidence, timeline, connections. His wife wasn't just involved in this horror. She was orchestrating it. And if Charlie was right about the schedule, it wasn't over. 20 minutes later, sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Matthew had already called his kids' schools and arranged for early pickup under the pretense of a family emergency. They were currently at his sister's house across town, safely away from whatever hell was about to descend on his home. But as Detective Brett Lawrence and the crime scene team began their work, Matthew realized safety was only temporary. Because if Lori was capable of this level of deception and violence, what else was she planning? And more importantly, who was helping her? Chapter 3. The Web Unravels. Detective Brett Lawrence had 23 years of experience in Denver PD's Major Crimes Unit, but even he paused when he saw the contents of the Combs family freezer. The scene was methodical, organized, and deeply disturbing. "Mr. Combs," Detective Lawrence said, settling across from Matthew at the kitchen table, "I need you to understand that this is now an active crime scene. You and your children cannot return home until our investigation is complete." Matthew nodded, his engineer's mind still processing the impossibility of his situation. "Detective, I need to know, is my family in danger?" "That's what we're trying to determine." Lawrence opened his notebook. "Tell me about your wife's routine, her friends, where she spent her time." For the next hour, Matthew provided details that now seemed ominous in hindsight. Lori's frequent absences, her secretive phone calls, her insistence on handling certain household tasks alone, including anything involving the basement. The notebook Charlie found, Lawrence said carefully, contains detailed records going back 8 months. Names, dates, locations. We're cross-referencing with missing persons reports, but preliminary analysis suggests your wife has been involved in a trafficking operation. The words hit Matthew like a physical blow. Human trafficking, not a crime of passion or a single terrible mistake. A systematic business of destroying lives. "There's more," Lawrence continued. "The financial records we found suggest this operation involves multiple people and significant money transfers. Your wife wasn't working alone." Matthew's phone buzzed with a text from Lori. "Where are you? Why are police cars at our house?" He showed the message to Lawrence, who immediately motioned to a technician. "We need to trace this and set up monitoring on Mr. Combs' phone. She doesn't know what we've found yet." "Detective," Matthew said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside, "I want to help catch them. All of them." Lawrence studied Matthew's face. "Mr. Combs, I understand your anger, but this is a police matter now. These people are dangerous." "You don't understand," Matthew replied. "I'm not talking about vigilante justice. I'm talking about using my skills to help you build an airtight case. I'm an engineer. I understand systems, processes, evidence chains. And I know Lori better than anyone." Lawrence was quiet for a moment. "What do you mean?" Matthew pulled out a small notebook he'd been writing in since returning from his sister's house. "Lori thinks she's clever, but she's predictable. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she claims book club, but she's gone exactly 4 hours and returns with her car's odometer showing 60 to 80 additional miles. That's a very specific radius from our house." He flipped pages. "She gets nervous phone calls that always end with her saying Thursday pickup or Tuesday delivery. She's been insisting we pay cash for everything lately, claiming she wants to simplify our finances." And 3 weeks ago, I found a prepaid phone hidden in her jewelry box. Lawrence's eyebrows rose. You've been documenting this? I'm an engineer, detective. When I see a system failing, I analyze it. Matthew's expression hardened. I just never thought the system failing was my marriage and the woman I trusted was a monster. Lawrence made several notes. Mr. Combs, you may be able to help us more than you realize. But first, we need to ensure your safety and your children's safety. These people have killed at least 6 victims that we can identify so far. Matthew's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from Lori. Answer it, Lawrence instructed, nodding to the technician monitoring the call. Act normal. Don't let her know anything's wrong. Matthew took a breath and answered. Hey, babe. Matthew, what's going on? There are police cars everywhere, and Mrs. Patterson next door says there are people in hazmat suits going in and out of our house. Gas leak, Matthew lied smoothly. Pretty serious one. The gas company called in hazmat as a precaution. I'm at Susan's with the kids until they clear us to go home. There was a pause. That's terrible. How long will we be displaced? Could be a few days. They have to check all the appliances, make sure there's no contamination. Matthew met Lawrence's eyes. Where are you? I thought you were at book club. I was, but Sandra called and said she saw the emergency vehicles. I'm heading home now. Don't, Matthew said quickly. They're not letting anyone in the area. Meet us at Susan's instead. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, I'll be there in an hour. When Matthew hung up, Lawrence was already mobilizing his team. We'll have units watching your sister's house. When your wife arrives, we'll arrest her quietly. But Mr. Combs, I need to prepare you. This is just the beginning. Based on what we found, your wife is part of a larger network. Matthew stood, his jaw set with determination. Then we'd better make sure we get all of them. As the afternoon wore on, Matthew began to understand the true scope of the horror his wife had been orchestrating. The trafficking ring used a network of seemingly legitimate businesses, a moving company, a landscaping service, and even a children's charity to identify, transport, and dispose of victims. But Matthew also began to see something else: patterns, weaknesses, opportunities. If Lori thought she was dealing with a heartbroken, naive husband, she was about to discover she'd greatly underestimated the man she'd been deceiving. The game was far from over. In fact, for Matthew Combs, it was just beginning. Chapter 4. The Network Exposed. The arrest of Lori Donovan Combs at Susan's house went smoothly, but her reaction told Matthew everything he needed to know about his wife's true nature. No tears, no protestations of innocence, no emotional appeals. Just cold calculation and immediate demands for a lawyer. She's a professional, Detective Lawrence observed as they watched through the one-way glass at the police station. 23 years of interrogations, and I've never seen someone flip that switch so completely. Matthew studied his wife's posture, straight-backed, alert, conferring with her attorney in whispers. She's not surprised by any of this. She had contingency plans. What makes you say that? Look at her hands. No fidgeting, no stress responses. She's going through a checklist in her mind. Matthew's engineering background had trained him to observe systems under stress. She's stalling, which means she's buying time for something or someone. Lawrence's phone rang. After a brief conversation, he turned to Matthew with a grim expression. You're right. We just lost surveillance on 2 of the businesses we identified from the documents. Their offices have been cleared out, and key personnel have disappeared. Matthew wasn't surprised. She triggered their emergency protocol somehow. Probably a code word during her arrest or through a lawyer. Mr. Combs, I'm going to ask you something. I want you to think carefully before answering. Lawrence sat down across from Matthew. You know your wife better than anyone. If she's as smart as she appears, she'll have prepared for the possibility of getting caught. What would her backup plan look like? Matthew considered the question with the same methodical approach he used for complex engineering problems. Lori always needs control and always has exit strategies. She told me once that her biggest fear was being trapped with no options. He paused. If she's part of a larger network, she either has leverage over them or she has an escape route they don't know about. Leverage, information, records, evidence that could bring down the whole operation. Matthew's eyes widened as the implications hit him. Detective, what if the notebook you found wasn't her only record-keeping? What if she kept insurance files? Lawrence immediately called for a more thorough search of the Combs house. Within hours, investigators found a hidden safe behind a false wall in Lori's home office. Inside, detailed financial records, photographs, communications logs, and most damning of all, video recordings of key figures in the trafficking network. Your wife documented everything, Detective Lawrence said, spreading the evidence across a conference table. Names, dates, financial transactions, operational details. It's like she was building a case file. Matthew examined the materials, his anger building as he recognized some of the names. Some of these people, I know them. We've had them to dinner parties. She introduced them as her volunteer work colleagues. One name in particular caught his attention, Ignacio Donovan. That's her brother. I thought he worked in import-export. He does, Lawrence said grimly. Just not the legal kind. According to these records, he's been using his shipping business to transport victims across state lines. This operation is much larger than we initially thought. Matthew studied the organizational chart Lori had meticulously maintained. The network included a dozen businesses across 3 states, with victims being moved through a pipeline that started with identification and grooming, moved through transportation and containment, and ended with disposal. She kept all this as insurance, Matthew realized. If anyone tried to cut her out or eliminate her, she could bring down the entire network. Which means, Lawrence concluded, now that she's been arrested, everyone involved is in damage control mode. They'll either try to eliminate the evidence and witnesses, or eliminate her, Matthew finished. Detective, my wife may be a monster, but she's also the key to stopping this entire operation. If something happens to her in custody, Lawrence nodded. We've already arranged for protective custody. But you're right, we're racing against time. Every hour we delay gives them more opportunity to cover their tracks and disappear. Matthew stood and began pacing, his mind working through the problem. What if we could turn their panic against them? Force them to make mistakes? What do you mean? Lori's arrest will have triggered their emergency protocols, but those protocols assume she's a liability to be eliminated. What if we made them think she was cooperating with law enforcement, that she was giving up everything she knew? Lawrence looked intrigued. You're thinking of a controlled information leak. I'm thinking of psychological warfare, Matthew replied. These people have built their success on secrecy and control. Take that away, make them paranoid about each other, and they'll start making desperate decisions. Over the next several hours, Matthew worked with Detective Lawrence and FBI agent Sarah Chun, who had been called in due to the interstate nature of the crimes. Together, they developed a strategy that would use Lori's own documentation against her former associates. It's risky, Agent Chun warned. If we move too aggressively, we could spook the entire network into going underground. And if we move too slowly, Matthew countered, more people die. These records show they have a shipment scheduled for this weekend. That's not merchandise. Those are human beings. Detective Lawrence made the final call. We go with Mr. Combs' plan, but we do it surgically. Target the key players, apply pressure simultaneously, and force them to react before they can coordinate a response. As the task force prepared for coordinated raids across 3 states, Matthew felt a mixture of satisfaction and cold determination. The careful, methodical approach that had made him successful as an engineer was now being applied to dismantling the network that had destroyed so many lives. But Matthew also knew this was personal. These people hadn't just committed crimes. They had used his home, his marriage, his life as cover for their operations. They had put his children in danger and made him an unwitting accomplice to their horrors. The professional response was justice through the legal system. But Matthew was already considering what would happen if the legal system proved insufficient. Chapter 5. The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. The coordinated raids yielded mixed results. While law enforcement managed to rescue 7 victims and seize significant evidence, most of the network's leadership had vanished. Only 3 mid-level operatives were arrested, and Ignacio Donovan had disappeared completely. He had a 12-hour head start, Agent Chun explained during the task force debriefing. By the time we hit his shipping facility, everything had been sanitized. Professional job. They even removed traces of DNA evidence. Matthew studied the arrest reports and evidence logs. But you got the financial records before they could clean those out. Most of them, Detective Lawrence confirmed. Your wife's documentation was incredibly thorough. We've frozen over $2 million in assets and identified property in 4 states. What about the victims you rescued? Matthew asked. Agent Chin's expression brightened slightly. All alive, receiving medical care and psychological support. 2 are able to provide testimony about the network's operations. Without your wife's records, we never would have found them in time. Matthew should have felt satisfaction at this victory, but something was nagging at him. Agent Chun, in my experience, when a complex system fails catastrophically, it's usually because someone triggered a cascade failure. The network's response was too coordinated, too thorough. They didn't just have contingency plans, they had inside information about our investigation. Lawrence and Chun exchanged glances. What are you suggesting? Lawrence asked. I'm suggesting that someone with access to our investigation warned them. The timing was too perfect. Matthew pulled out his notebook and began sketching a timeline. We discovered the evidence Monday morning. By Wednesday evening, when we arrested Lori, the network was already evacuating. But we didn't brief the full task force until Tuesday afternoon. Agent Chin leaned forward. You think we have a leak? I think we have someone who's more concerned with protecting the investigation than getting justice for the victims. Matthew's voice hardened. Someone who wanted to make sure the key players escaped. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Lawrence and Chun began reviewing who had access to sensitive information, while Matthew continued his analysis. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife isn't the only one with insurance files. Stop digging, or your children will pay the price. Matthew showed the message to the agents, but his expression remained calm. They just made their first real mistake. How so? Chun asked. They're threatening my children instead of me. That means they don't understand who they're dealing with. Matthew's engineering background had taught him that systems under pressure reveal their weaknesses. They think I'm a grieving husband who stumbled into their operation. They're about to learn otherwise. Over the next 48 hours, Matthew used his analytical skills and the resources provided by the task force to map out the network's remaining structure. Using Lori's documentation and the evidence from the raids, he identified patterns in their communications, financial transfers, and operational procedures. But Matthew was also conducting his own parallel investigation, one that didn't rely on official channels. Using contacts from his engineering work and his own technical skills, he began tracing digital footprints that the official investigation might miss. Mr. Combs, Detective Lawrence said during one of their strategy sessions, I need to remind you that you're a civilian consultant, not a law enforcement officer. If you're conducting unauthorized surveillance or investigation. Detective, Matthew interrupted. 3 days ago, I discovered that my wife was using our home as a base of operations for human trafficking. Yesterday, someone threatened my children. I'm not conducting unauthorized investigation. I'm protecting my family using every legal means at my disposal. The distinction was important, both legally and personally. Matthew wasn't seeking revenge. He was systematically identifying and neutralizing threats to his children's safety. That evening, Matthew's parallel investigation yielded results. Cross-referencing financial records, property ownership data, and communication patterns, he identified what appeared to be a safe house outside of Denver where network leadership might be regrouping. But Matthew didn't share this information with the task force immediately. Instead, he conducted additional surveillance, confirming patterns of activity that suggested the location was active. His daughter Lana called that evening. Dad, when can we go home? I miss my room, and Eric is driving me crazy at Aunt Susan's. Soon, sweetheart. The police are almost finished with their work. Matthew's voice was gentle, but his expression was steel. Lana, I need you and Eric to stay exactly where you are until I come get you. Don't go anywhere with anyone else, even if they say I sent them. Dad, you're scaring me. I'm being careful, that's all. I love you both more than anything in this world, and I'm going to make sure you're safe. After ending the call, Matthew made a decision that would define everything that followed. He would share his intelligence with the task force, but he would also take independent action to ensure his children's protection. The network had made this personal when they threatened Eric and Lana. Now, they would discover that threatening a systems engineer's children was a catastrophic error in judgment. Matthew Combs had spent his career solving complex problems through methodical analysis and precise execution. The human trafficking network was simply another system to be analyzed, understood, and ultimately dismantled. But unlike his professional projects, this one was personal. And Matthew was about to demonstrate why that made all the difference. Chapter 6. The Trap Springs. The safe house Matthew had identified turned out to be more than just a hideout. It was the network's operational command center. Through careful surveillance using techniques he'd learned during his military engineering service, Matthew confirmed the presence of at least 6 individuals, including Ignacio Donovan. "This is bigger than we thought," Agent Chun said as she reviewed Matthew's reconnaissance data. "They're not just hiding. They're actively running operations from this location." Detective Lawrence studied the photographs Matthew had taken using a telephoto lens and night vision equipment. "How did you get this close without being detected?" "Patience and proper planning," Matthew replied. "I spent 3 days mapping their security patterns, identifying blind spots, and timing their shift changes. They're good, but they're not military trained. They have gaps." What Matthew didn't mention was that his surveillance had revealed something else. The network was preparing to eliminate loose ends, starting with Lori. Intercepted communications suggested they planned to stage her death in custody, making it look like suicide. "Agent Chun, I need to speak with my wife," Matthew said. "That's not possible. She's in protective custody, and her lawyer has advised her not to speak with anyone." "Then we need to arrange a different kind of conversation." Matthew opened his laptop and pulled up a detailed floor plan of the safe house. "Because in 18 hours, they're going to try to kill her, and when they do, we lose our best source of intelligence about the network's full scope." Matthew's plan was complex but elegant in its simplicity. Using Lori's own paranoid documentation habits against the network, they would make it appear that she had hidden additional evidence that would be released automatically if anything happened to her. "It's called a dead man's switch," Matthew explained. Lori mentioned it once in the context of a thriller novel she was reading. "If we can convince the network that killing her would trigger the release of incriminating evidence, they'll be forced to keep her alive." Agent Chin looked skeptical. "And if they call our bluff?" "Then we make sure it's not a bluff," Matthew replied. "I've been analyzing the network structure, and I believe I can map their entire operation using the evidence we've already collected. We create a comprehensive dossier, names, locations, financial records, everything, and establish an automated system to release it if Lori dies." Over the next 12 hours, Matthew worked with a team of FBI cyber specialists to create what appeared to be an unbreakable dead man's switch. The system was designed to look sophisticated enough to be credible, while actually being simple enough to be controlled manually. Meanwhile, Detective Lawrence arranged for a carefully staged leak of information suggesting that Lori had cooperated extensively with federal investigators before her lawyer advised silence. "The beauty of this approach," Matthew explained to Eric and Lana during a secure video call, "is that it uses the network's own paranoia against them. They built their operation on secrecy and mutual distrust. Now that distrust will tear them apart." "Dad," Eric said, "this sounds really dangerous. Are you sure you know what you're doing?" Matthew looked at his son's concerned face on the laptop screen. "Eric, when I design a system, I test every component multiple times before implementation. This is no different. I've analyzed every variable, planned for every contingency." What Matthew didn't tell his children was that his plan had a second phase, one that didn't rely on law enforcement procedures or legal constraints. The first test of Matthew's strategy came at 3:17 a.m. when the network attempted to breach the facility where Lori was being held in protective custody. The attempt was sophisticated, involving forged federal credentials and an elaborate story about transferring Lori to a more secure location. But Matthew had anticipated this exact scenario, and worked with Agent Shun to establish protocols that required multi-level verification for any movement of high-value prisoners. The attempted breach failed, but it confirmed that the network was desperate enough to take enormous risks. More importantly, it proved that Matthew's analysis of their decision-making patterns was accurate. Phase 1 successful, Matthew reported to the task force. They've confirmed that keeping Lori alive is now a priority. That gives us operational space to move to Phase 2. Which is? Detective Lawrence asked. Matthew smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. Phase 2 is where we stop reacting to their moves and start controlling the game board. Matthew's engineering background had taught him that complex systems often had single points of failure, critical components whose malfunction would cause cascade failures throughout the entire system. The human trafficking network was no different. After days of analysis, Matthew had identified the network's single point of failure, their communication system. Every operation, every financial transaction, every movement of personnel flowed through a secured communications hub that Ignacio Donovan controlled personally. If we can compromise their communications, Matthew explained, we can do more than just intercept their messages. We can inject false information, create confusion, and turn their coordination system against them. Agent Shin looked impressed despite herself. You're talking about sophisticated cyber warfare, Mr. Combs. That's not typically a civilian skill set. Agent Shun, Matthew replied, I design control systems for advanced aircraft. Compromising a criminal network's communications is actually less complicated than debugging flight control software. As Matthew began implementing Phase 2 of his plan, he felt the satisfaction that came with applying his professional skills to a problem that mattered more than anything else in his life. The network had threatened his children and used his wife to violate everything he held sacred. Now, they would learn what happened when they targeted a systems engineer's family. Chapter 7, Digital Warfare. Matthew's cyber assault on the network's communications began at precisely 2 a.m. on Friday morning. Using a combination of social engineering, technical exploits, and the network's own paranoid security protocols against them, he gained access to their central communications hub within 43 minutes. Impressive, Agent Shin admitted as she watched Matthew work from the FBI's cybercrimes unit. You're moving through their security like it's not even there. That's because I'm not trying to break their security, Matthew explained, his fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm using their own authorization protocols. Lori's documentation included administrative passwords and system access codes. They trusted her completely. What followed was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. Matthew began injecting subtle inconsistencies into the network's communications. Messages that appeared to come from legitimate sources, but contained small discrepancies that would create doubt and suspicion. A message from Ignacio Donovan to his lieutenant in Phoenix contained financial figures that didn't match previous communications. A shipping schedule from the logistics coordinator included pickup times that conflicted with established patterns. Asset transfer instructions included account numbers that had been compromised in the previous raids. You're making them paranoid about each other, Detective Lawrence observed. I'm accelerating a process that was already underway, Matthew corrected. Criminal organizations like this survive on trust and predictability. When either of those elements becomes questionable, the organization begins to cannibalize itself. Within 6 hours, the network's communications traffic had increased by 400% as members desperately tried to verify information and confirm loyalties. But Matthew had anticipated this response and had prepared the second phase of his digital assault. Using the increased communications as cover, Matthew deployed what he privately called the Lori Protocol, a series of automated messages that appeared to be coming from multiple sources within the network, all suggesting that various members were cooperating with law enforcement. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Within 12 hours, the network had effectively paralyzed itself with mutual suspicion and preemptive strikes against suspected traitors. Mr. Combs, Agent Shin said, reviewing intercepts from the network's fragmenting communications, what you've accomplished in 18 hours would typically require months of undercover work and enormous resources. Matthew didn't respond immediately. He was monitoring a particular conversation between Ignacio Donovan and someone identified only as the coordinator, a previously unknown figure who appeared to be the network's actual leadership. Agent Chun, Matthew said finally, I need to accelerate the timeline. The coordinator is ordering the elimination of all operational personnel, including Ignacio. They're going to disappear completely and rebuild the network from scratch. How long do we have? Based on their logistics discussions, 72 hours. After that, everyone we haven't caught will be gone, and the victims still in the pipeline will be. Matthew didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Detective Lawrence leaned over Matthew's shoulder. What do you need? I need to force the coordinator into the open. Right now, they're insulated from the network's collapse because they maintained operational distance. But there's one thing that will make them take direct action, which is Matthew's expression hardened. The suggestion that Lori has been cooperating not just with federal law enforcement, but with international agencies. That her documentation includes details about overseas operations and money laundering through foreign banks. Agent Shin looked concerned. Mr. Combs, if you make that kind of claim, you'll be painting a target on your wife's back that we might not be able to protect her from. My wife painted that target on herself when she chose to participate in human trafficking, Matthew replied coldly. But more importantly, the coordinator won't be able to resist the opportunity to eliminate the threat personally. They'll come out of hiding to ensure the job gets done right. What Matthew didn't explain was that he was also using this strategy to force a personal confrontation. The analytical part of his mind recognized that the legal system might not deliver the kind of justice he felt was appropriate for people who had used his family and threatened his children. Over the next 24 hours, Matthew implemented the most sophisticated disinformation campaign of his career. Using the network's compromised communications, he created the impression that Lori had been secretly cooperating with Interpol, the DEA, and FBI international task forces for months. Forged communications suggested that Lori had provided detailed information about overseas money laundering operations, international transportation routes, and foreign contacts. Most damaging of all, fabricated evidence suggested that she had been recording conversations and documenting activities specifically to build cases against the network's leadership. The response was swift and decisive. The coordinator, revealed through intercepted communications to be someone named Albert Villanueva, personally ordered the immediate elimination of Lori and the comprehensive sanitization of all network operations. But Albert made a crucial error. He decided to personally oversee Lori's elimination to ensure no mistakes were made. We have him. Agent Shin announced as surveillance teams tracked Albert's movement toward the federal facility where Lori was being held. He's bringing a full tactical team, but we're ready. Matthew studied the tactical briefing with the same attention to detail he brought to engineering schematics. Agent Shun, I want to be part of the arrest team. Mr. Combs, that's absolutely not appropriate. You're a civilian consultant. Agent Shun, Matthew replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being listened to. I've spent 2 weeks systematically dismantling a criminal network that threatened my family. I've provided intelligence, tactical analysis, and operational planning that has saved lives and prevented additional crimes. He stood, his expression resolute. Albert Villanueva ordered the death of my wife and threatened my children. I want to look him in the eye when he's arrested, so he understands exactly who defeated him. Detective Lawrence intervened. Chun, he's been right about everything so far, and technically, he'll be safer with us than anywhere else when this goes down. Agent Chun considered the request, then nodded reluctantly. You are protective gear, you stay behind the tactical team, and you don't interfere with the arrest. Understood, Matthew agreed. But as they prepared for the confrontation with Albert Villanueva, Matthew was already thinking beyond the arrest. The legal system would handle the prosecution and imprisonment. But Matthew had his own plans for ensuring that the people who had threatened his family understood the full consequences of their choices. The game was entering its final phase, and Matthew Combs intended to control every move. Chapter 8. Face to Face with Evil. Albert Villanueva arrived at the federal facility at 11:47 p.m. with a 6-person tactical team, sophisticated equipment, and a plan that would have succeeded against normal law enforcement preparation. But Albert had no way of knowing that his every move had been anticipated by a systems engineer who had spent 2 weeks analyzing his decision-making patterns. "Target acquired," came the voice through Matthew's earpiece as he crouched behind an armored vehicle 50 yards from the facility entrance. Agent Chun had reluctantly allowed him to observe the operation, though he was positioned well away from the primary action. Matthew watched through night vision binoculars as Albert's team began their approach. They moved with military precision, but Matthew noticed something that made him smile grimly. They were following exactly the infiltration pattern he had predicted in his tactical analysis. "Chun," Matthew whispered into his radio, "they're going to hit the southeast service entrance in 90 seconds. They have shaped charges for the security door, and they'll deploy flashbangs before entry." "How can you be so specific?" came Chen's voice. "Because Albert is a control freak, and control freaks follow predictable patterns when under pressure," Matthew replied. "He's planned this operation the same way he plans everything else, with redundancy and overwhelming force applied at the perceived point of weakness." The arrest operation unfolded exactly as Matthew had predicted. Albert's team breached the service entrance, deployed their flashbangs, and advanced toward what they believed was Lori's holding area. Instead, they found themselves in a carefully prepared trap, surrounded by federal agents who had been waiting in concealed positions. The tactical phase was over in less than 3 minutes. Albert's team was neutralized without shots being fired, though 2 agents sustained minor injuries during the takedown. But it was what happened next that Matthew had been waiting for. Albert Villanueva, zip-tied and seated in the back of an FBI transport van, was not the sophisticated criminal mastermind Matthew had expected. He was an overweight man in his 50s with soft hands and nervous eyes, someone who had built his empire by staying far from the violence and letting others do the dangerous work. "Mr. Villanueva," Agent Chun said as she approached the transport van, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other federal charges. You have the right to remain silent." Albert's eyes darted around desperately before settling on Matthew, who stood just behind Agent Chun. "You're him, aren't you? The husband?" Matthew stepped closer to the van. "Yes, I am. This is all her fault," Albert said, his voice taking on a whining quality. "Lori got greedy, started keeping too many records, took too many risks. I told her the business had to stay small, controllable." "The business," Matthew repeated, his voice flat. "You mean the systematic kidnapping, abuse, and murder of human beings?" Albert's expression shifted to something Matthew recognized from his engineering work. The look of someone trying to solve a problem by eliminating inconvenient variables. "Look, Mr. Combs, I understand you're upset about your wife's activities, but this can all be resolved quietly. I have resources, connections. Your children could benefit significantly from a more understanding approach to this situation." Agent Chin started to intervene, but Matthew held up a hand. "What exactly are you suggesting, Albert?" "I'm suggesting that accidents happen. People disappear, but they don't have to. Not if everyone involved understands the mutual benefits of discretion." Matthew studied Albert's face with the same analytical attention he gave to complex engineering problems. "You're offering to spare my children's lives in exchange for my cooperation in covering up your crimes." "I'm offering to make sure everyone gets what they really want," Albert replied. "You want your family safe. I want to continue my business operations. There's no reason we can't reach a mutually beneficial arrangement." Matthew was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had made a final decision. "Albert, I want you to understand something very clearly. You threaten my children. You use my wife to operate a criminal enterprise from my home. You've destroyed the lives of dozens of innocent people." He leaned closer to the van. "I'm a systems engineer, Albert. I solve complex problems by identifying the critical failure points and eliminating them. You are a critical failure point." Albert's expression changed from calculating to fearful. "What does that mean?" "It means I've spent 2 weeks documenting every aspect of your organization. I know your real name, your financial holdings, your operational methods. And most importantly, I know every crime you've committed and everyone who helped you commit them. Matthew straightened up. Agent Chun has enough evidence to convict you on multiple federal charges. But that's just the legal system, Albert. There's also the personal system. I don't understand what you're. The personal system is what happens when someone threatens a family man's children, Matthew interrupted. The legal system will put you in prison for the rest of your life. The personal system will make sure that everyone you ever cared about understands exactly what kind of monster you are. Matthew turned to Agent Chun. I believe Mr. Villanueva is ready to be transported to federal holding. He has a lot to think about. As the transport van pulled away, Agent Chun looked at Matthew with a mixture of admiration and concern. Mr. Combs, what did you mean by the personal system? Matthew was quiet for a moment, watching the taillights disappear into the night. Agent Chun, the legal system will handle Albert's prosecution and imprisonment. But Albert has family members, business associates, and social connections who have no idea what he's been doing. I think they deserve to know. You're talking about destroying his reputation and relationships. I'm talking about ensuring that the consequences of his choices extend beyond a prison sentence, Matthew replied. Albert built his life on deception and compartmentalization. I'm going to make sure that compartmentalization collapses completely. As they prepared to leave the arrest site, Matthew felt a sense of completion that went beyond simple justice. The systems engineer in him appreciated the elegant resolution. Every threat neutralized, every loose end tied up, every component of the criminal network identified and dismantled. But more than that, Matthew knew that his children could finally come home. The nightmare that had begun with a routine appliance repair was finally over. Or so he thought. Chapter 9. Justice and Resolution. 6 months after Albert Villanueva's arrest, Matthew stood in the kitchen of his renovated home, watching Eric and Lana prepare breakfast before school. The house had been extensively remodeled after the FBI released it as a crime scene. New flooring, fresh paint, and most importantly, no basement chest freezer. Dad, Lana said, scrambling eggs while Eric made toast. Mrs. Henderson says the trial starts next week. Are you going to testify? Matthew nodded. Both Albert and your mother will be sentenced based partly on my testimony and the evidence we gathered. He didn't mention that Lori had attempted to negotiate a plea agreement that would have reduced her sentence in exchange for additional cooperation. Matthew had encouraged federal prosecutors to reject the offer. Eric looked up from the toaster. What do you think will happen to them? Albert will spend the rest of his life in federal prison, Matthew replied matter-of-factly. The charges include multiple counts of human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and racketeering. His minimum sentence is life without parole. And Mom, Lana asked quietly. Matthew's expression softened slightly. Your mother made terrible choices that hurt innocent people. She'll also spend many years in prison. But she's still your mother, and if you ever want to write to her or visit her, I'll support that decision. What Matthew didn't tell his children was that his personal system had been even more effective than the legal system. Albert's wife had divorced him and moved across the country with their children after learning about his crimes. His business associates had terminated all relationships and cooperated fully with investigators to distance themselves from his activities. His social circle had completely ostracized him. More importantly, Matthew had used his technical skills to ensure that Albert's criminal activities became widely known in federal prison. Inmates who trafficked children rarely fared well in the prison hierarchy. Detective Lawrence called that afternoon with an update. Mr. Combs, I wanted to let you know that the trafficking network has been completely dismantled. We've rescued 37 victims total, made 43 arrests across 8 states, and seized over $8 million in assets. What about the victims? Matthew asked. Are they getting the help they need? All survivors are receiving comprehensive support, medical care, psychological counseling, legal assistance, and help reintegrating into society. Several have specifically asked me to thank you for your role in their rescue. After ending the call, Matthew returned to his home workshop, where he was crafting a custom chess set, a project that required precision, patience, and long-term planning. The same skills that had made him an effective engineer and had enabled him to dismantle a criminal network. Agent Shin visited that evening to provide final case updates. Mr. Combs, I wanted you to know that your analytical work has been incorporated into FBI training protocols. The systematic approach you use to map and disrupt the network is being taught to agents specializing in organized crime. I'm glad something positive can come from this experience, Matthew replied. Any word on whether there are other networks operating similar schemes? We've identified several suspicious operations using techniques based on your analytical framework, Shin confirmed. Your work isn't just going to put Albert and Lori in prison. It's going to help us catch other criminals who use similar methods. That night, Matthew sat in his living room with Eric and Lana, watching a movie and eating popcorn. It was a scene of domestic normalcy that would have seemed impossible 6 months earlier. Dad, Eric said during a commercial break, I've been thinking about what I want to study in college. I still want to be an engineer like you, but I also want to understand how criminals think. Maybe criminal psychology or forensic analysis. Matthew smiled. That sounds like an excellent combination. The world needs people who can understand both the technical and human aspects of solving complex problems. Lana, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. Dad, I've been having nightmares about Mom. Not about what she did, but about, what if I'm like her? What if there's something wrong with me too? Matthew set down his popcorn and looked directly at his daughter. Lana, character isn't genetic. It's developed through choices, experiences, and the values you embrace. You and Eric have shown more courage, integrity, and compassion during this ordeal than many adults show in their entire lives. He pulled both children closer. Your mother made her choices. You'll make yours. And based on everything I've observed about your character, I have complete confidence in the people you're becoming. 3 months later, Matthew received a letter from one of the trafficking victims who had been rescued. Maria Santos, a 19-year-old from El Paso, wrote that she was now studying social work and planned to help other survivors of human trafficking. Mr. Combs, her letter read, I wanted you to know that your decision to fight for justice instead of just accepting what happened has changed my life and the lives of 36 other people. We get to live, go to school, have families, and make our own choices because you refuse to give up. Thank you for proving that good people still exist and still fight for what's right. Matthew kept the letter in his workshop next to a photograph of Eric and Lana at their high school graduation. Both had been accepted to excellent universities, and both planned to pursue careers that involve helping others. On the first anniversary of the day, Charlie Ingram found the contents of the chest freezer. Matthew made a point of calling the appliance repairman. Charlie, this is Matthew Combs. I wanted to thank you again for your courage and for doing the right thing, even though it was difficult. Mr. Combs, Charlie replied, I've been fixing appliances for 30 years and I've never seen anything like that day. But I've also never seen anyone handle a situation like that with the strength and intelligence you showed. You should be proud of what you accomplished. After ending the call, Matthew returned to his workshop, where he was designing a new project, a memorial sculpture for the victims of human trafficking. The piece would incorporate precision machine components, artistic elements, and most importantly, the names of every victim who had been rescued as a result of the investigation. Matthew Combs had learned that sometimes the most important engineering challenges weren't technical problems. They were human problems that required technical solutions. He had also learned that protecting the people you love sometimes required not just strength,